So it's coming. It's coming.
Tech proof.
Okay. So you're live.
It's interesting that, Barbara was just talking about judgment, because even as I was making this talk and pulling everything together, I thought, I'm being introduced as a mental health therapist, and by the time you listen to some of my story, you're going to think she should still be in therapy or something. But it's worth it, because to be open about your story is so important, because other moms need to hear it, to know that they're not by themselves. So sometimes, even when we're nervous about being judged, it's a brave step to come forward and say how you're really doing, because that could be the biggest gift you give somebody else. And I hope that my story today is going to do that for some of you who need to hear it. So, first one. Nope, back. There we go. Thank you. So, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And in this picture, you'll see my family. That's my husband, our son James, and our daughter May. James is 8, and May is 6.5. And this picture I can look back on because it's pretty recent. It was our family vacation this past summer. We went to the Jersey Shore for a week. It was lovely. And when I look at this picture, I think about what a nice time we were having. Those smiles are genuine. And our kids, I feel like we're in a particularly smooth time of parenting, and I know it's not going to stay like that, but right now it is. Our kids are happy, they are fun-loving, they're enjoyable to be around. We genuinely love our kids and this stage of life. But it wasn't always like that, and I think it's important, especially when we have social media and other pictures that we look at all the time that make us think that pictures like this represent our whole life, that's not always true. So this is genuine, but there are a lot of pictures that I look back on and I think, gosh, I looked happy, but I know I wasn't. And I had a really hard time after becoming a mom, both times. And a lot of mom guilt because of it. And there were things that happened, feelings I had, thoughts that were swirling around all the time in my mind that made me think that I was not a good mom. And I'm going to share what happened with you ladies today, but I'm also going to follow it up by 3 truths that I genuinely believe God revealed to me over time that showed me otherwise. And my hope is that what I learned is really going to ring true for all of you, especially in the moments where we don't feel like we're measuring up. Thank you. Okay. So when I found out that I was pregnant for the first time, I was so excited. It was planned. My husband and I had said we wanted to have kids, and so I was thrilled to tell all of my family and my friends that we were expecting our son. Now, my husband was in the military. He was in the U.S. Air Force for about 10 years. And so when we got married and when we had both our kids, we were actually stationed in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We were there. My family was here in West Caldwell. My husband's family was in Pennsylvania. So we didn't have any immediate family nearby. And my mom, bless her heart, she tried her best to make everything as normal as possible for me. She even threw me a virtual baby shower so that I would get these little gifts delivered to the house, and it made it feel special. Then, when it got closer to the time of having my son, I wanted my mom and dad to be there so badly. And we all know that due dates are guesstimates, right? But we managed to get my parents to New Mexico, and I think they were there for 2 days, and then my son was born. So God really stepped in and made sure that I had that, because I pictured my husband on one side of the bed, my mom on the other, and that's exactly what I got. This picture is another genuine smile, mostly because it was about an hour or two before I had my son. My mom took that, and I had an epidural, so I was doing fine. But when I see that picture, it actually makes me a little sad. I'm gonna try not to cry. It's a little fresh. Because I didn't know that a couple hours later, I was gonna have a really hard time. That my expectations of what motherhood was gonna feel like when I had my baby was gonna get turned on its head. My mom was at my one side, my husband at the other. I had less than an hour of pushing, and my son was born. And the doctor put him on my chest, and I remember my mom, she's right here, by the way, if I keep looking here. I remember my mom said, "Katie, it's your baby. This is so exciting, this is your baby." And it was like a flip kind of switched inside my head, where my expectations of the joy that motherhood was supposed to bring, that instant bond, wasn't there. Instead, it was actually thoughts of complete overwhelm and dread. Now, I won't go into detail, but I had stitches, and if you know, you know. I was uncomfortable. I was still half numb from the epidural. I was starving because I hadn't eaten anything since the day before, and they wouldn't let you, once you're admitted, and they don't want you to eat. So I kind of chalked it up to newly postpartum feelings, right? It would go away. But it didn't. So shortly after, the nurses started coming in, and they reminded me about what I put on my birth plan, which now I feel like a birth plan is just give birth. But my birth plan back then was have the baby and breastfeed. So I tried. And to make a long story short, multiple nurses coming in on their shifts tried to help me, and all I could feel was, I'm in pain. This is not easy. I don't want to do this. But I can't say that because I'm a new mom, and moms are supposed to be enjoying this moment. This is supposed to be one of the best days of my life. I can't say to anybody that I don't want to do this, that this is too hard. I can't admit that because it's going to make me look like I'm a bad mom, that I'm ungrateful. And then we were in the hospital for 3 days, I think. By the second day, a doctor that I honestly look at as an angel came in the room. And at first I thought, oh no, here we go. Here's another doctor or a nurse that's going to come in and tell me how to breastfeed, and I don't want to do it, and I can't say it. All the thoughts going in my head. And she sits down next to me, and she said, "Hi, Katie. I'm Dr. So-and-so. I heard you're having a little bit of a hard time feeding the baby. How are you doing? What are you feeling right now?" And I burst into tears. And the reason I fell apart was not just because I had to, again, just face these feelings that I was having and feeling so guilty about them, but it was actually tears of relief because somebody asked me how I was doing, and I didn't have to hold it in anymore. The nurses, nothing against them, they were doing their job, they saw what I wanted to do, they were just trying to get me to go in the direction of my plan, but they didn't ask me how I was feeling. They didn't say, "I wonder why she's not wanting to do this and she's having a hard time." So this doctor really opened up the door for me to say how I felt and to feel seen and heard and understood. And once that happened, then I was able to move forward and talk to her about a plan of action for how we could feed my son in a way that didn't overwhelm me, but also didn't make me feel guilty about how I was doing it. Thank you. So fast forward a little bit, about a year and a half later, 17 months to be exact, we welcomed my daughter, May, into the picture. And that's my son James in the back, sitting eating. And I took this one day when I was at home, and I think I put a little post up about it like, I'm rocking it. I'm doing it. My husband went back to work. I can do this. I can watch 2 kids by myself. And even though, again, I'm smiling there, and that was a good moment. There were many good moments. But that was also me trying to convince myself that I'm going to be okay. Right? I still struggled with those feelings that I can't do this, I don't want to do this. Being home when my husband went back to work after paternity leave, you would have thought he was going off to war, the way that I acted. I was crying, I didn't want him to leave. I wasn't showing anybody else this, but he got a front row seat. The overwhelm with motherhood, even with 2, was instantaneous. And the bond was not. And that, I think, is probably one of the things that upsets me the most, looking back, that I expected to have this instant bond, and it just didn't happen. And especially with my second baby, I thought this time around, I'm not a new mom anymore. I know what I'm doing. I can do 2 kids. This is not brand new again. And so when the same feelings started to return, and the overwhelm started to come up, I thought, oh no, not again. I can't do this. And I felt guilty about it, because I should be enjoying motherhood and I wasn't. I felt difficulty finding joy in the little things. I missed my life pre-kids. If you can have a vulnerable moment for a second, can we raise a hand for any of us that sometimes have a second where we wish it was just us and our spouse again? Or just us. 2 hands. I had those moments, and again, I couldn't say it, because a lot of my friends were having babies around the same time, the moms that I met while we were in New Mexico, and we had kind of formed this little group, and you know, everybody seemed like they were largely okay. And I kind of read the room, and I'm like, oh, I don't think I can say exactly how I feel. So it was very isolating to me. Because of this mix of emotions going on all the time, I felt a lot of resentment towards my situation. And that came out often in losing my temper a lot. If you could kind of picture an unhelpful cycle going on, the thoughts come up, the explosion, the guilt, thoughts again, explosion, guilt. That was what life felt like most of the time. And again, there were good moments for sure. I did not hate motherhood, but I had a lot of resentment and upset because so much of it felt hard to me. So we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So now we're getting to a point, if that wasn't bad enough, what I affectionately call my breaking point. What I had gone through up to this point wasn't it. This picture here is the picture we used for our Christmas card when my husband had to go on his final deployment. He was gone for a little over 8 months. And that was his last stint in the Air Force before he got out of the military. So the plan was that we were going to move the kids and me back here to New Jersey to be closer to family, so that while he was gone, I had support. And I did. I had a lot of support. We had our church, we had our family. I remember one of my sisters had the kids and me over probably like 5 nights a week for dinner, because the idea of cooking was just like so overwhelming to me. But even still, I was solo parenting for 8 months. Has anybody gone through a period of time where their spouses or their help has not been around for a little while? A business trip, it might not be a deployment, but yeah, it's hard, right? And even when you have places to go and people around you, it doesn't always feel easy. It can be very lonely and very isolating. And so that's part of what I dealt with. On top of being alone, I missed my husband. I wished that I had more friends that, I'd been away from New Jersey for a while. We had been gone for probably 4 years in the military, so I felt like I was starting all over with making new friends when we came back here. So it's like I was home, but I felt lonely. And then one night, my son was about this age, he was 2. We decided, with all the sleeplessness going on between him not really getting fully through the night, my daughter getting up with her with bottles to feed her, I was running on empty, and my son decided that was a perfect time to show me that he could crawl out of his pack and play. So I thought, this is a perfect time to introduce the toddler bed. No. So I got a toddler bed. Oh, it's so cute. He can sleep in here now. And he realized, oh, I can really get up now. And he did. And I knew it was going to be a little hard. It's a challenge. But I did have one evening where I put him to bed. I said, good night, bud. Time to go to sleep. Love you. I'll see you in the morning. I put him down. 2 minutes later, the door opens. And he pokes his head out. And I'm like, I just want to go watch Gilmore Girls. That's all I want to do. I don't want to keep that, like, the night needs to end. And it's not. That went on for probably over the course of 20 minutes of back to bed, get up, take him by the hand, walk him back, put him in, love you, good night. He's back up. I counted, and I didn't normally do this, but I counted how many times he got up that night. 20 times he got up out of bed. And so I'm sure you can imagine the dialogue that was going on in my head. What is wrong with him? Why is he getting up? I've done everything today. I am tired. I'm exhausted. I want to be done. I want to watch my show. I want to go to bed. And so as he continued to get up, my frustration was increasing. My patience was plummeting. And by that 20th time that he came out of the room, I lost my mind. I don't know if any of you have had a moment where you feel like you've truly lost it, almost like a separation from your body, kind of lost it, but I lost my mind. And I remember I said, you need to go back to bed right now. That's it. I dragged him by the arm. I didn't just walk him. I dragged him by the arm back into his room. I picked him up and I tossed him onto his bed. I stormed out, I slammed the door, and I yelled out, go to sleep. I heard him burst into tears, and then I was in tears. That was my breaking point. Not just because I lost my temper, but because my son looked afraid of me when I lost it like that. And I had never had that happen before. And it shook me up so badly because I didn't want that to be the norm for us. But what happened is it did start a change in my life. Because that happened, I knew this can't be the case and I need to change something. But I didn't know how. But God did. Thank you. He used what I held in isolation to be healed through connection. Oh, this is just a random picture in a park. I'm not in it. But Canva. But I took my kids to the park one day, and it was shortly after that. And I remember I ran into this mom, and you know when you meet a mom sometimes and you don't even have to know her already, and you just click really well, like the conversation's easy, and I found that. And she started talking to me about how she had kids about the same age, how she had trouble breastfeeding, how her mother-in-law was trying to force her to do that and made her feel guilty for not, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like looking in a mirror. This is my story. And we connected on that. Another day, I took my kids to the mall, and I had my baby in a carrier, and I had my son in a stroller, and I remember, you know, it's a big feat going to the mall with 2 kids, and you're like, please, will you just go to one store? And as I went into the mall, there was another mom coming out, and she had a baby in a carrier and a toddler in the stroller. I didn't know her. And as we passed by, I remember her looking over at me, and she just said, "You got this, Mom." And she had no idea that telling me 4 words in passing with no further conversation was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. I saw it, that I wasn't alone, woman with the same age kids, same situation, but to hear that those words, that "you got this," told me that she didn't have to know I was struggling to know that motherhood was hard sometimes. And she was able to give me so much confidence in that moment that, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. I can get through the mall with my kids. You know, when you can go back to the other side, sorry. So, between the mom at the park, the mom at the mall, and that angel doctor that came in after I had my son, there was something that all 3 of them had in common. And there were a lot of other people that fell into this category, but these 3 in particular helped me in moments when I needed it the most, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel understood. You know, when we are too quick sometimes to focus on fixing things, and we don't first let somebody tell their story, how they're really doing, it can be so detrimental for healing. Because one thing that I know, having gone through what I found out later was severe postpartum depression and anxiety, is that we feel very isolated when we're going through those emotions. It is difficult. And so when we take the time, when other people take the time to ask us, "How are you doing? How are you really feeling?" and they don't judge it, they just listen, that is the first step that has to happen before you can start going to the practical strategies for how to start feeling better. So after all this happened, I knew, especially after my breakdown moment, that something had to change, but my husband was still away on the deployment, and he wasn't going to come home for a few months still, so I didn't know what to do. But gradually, things started shifting for the better, and then finally he came home in February of 2020, February 2020, right before COVID hit, he came home. So by the grace of God, that happened, because had he been deployed 1 month later, he would have been stuck in Iraq for who knows how long. And who knows how my story would have ended. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, I have one more thing. I'm all over the place. So when he came home, I was able to start getting a little bit more freedom to go back to work, do some therapy for myself and for other people. And I thought about my experience in motherhood over the course of the time, not just that he was away, but from being a brand new mom. I didn't want to waste what I had gone through, because I really do believe that God can use the most painful experiences for the good of you and for people around you. So I decided to come up with a platform, a way that moms who felt just like I did could come and talk about how they were feeling, knowing that they were already in good company, which is half the battle of finding who you feel you can trust with how you're doing. And I called it the Calm Mom, because that's what I aspired to be. So much of my time felt not calm and overwhelmed. And now it's been about 5 or 6 years, I think, since the deployment, and I've run several Calm Mom groups. And it's been wonderful. It's been a way that moms can come and they find a lack of judgment and they feel connected and they can talk first about how they are really doing before we get to practical strategies and spiritual strategies for how they can start to get better. Okay. Now, during the course of my time from being a new mom, even up through now, God has definitely worked in me and through other people to reveal what I think are the 3 core truths that have helped me to be a calmer mom and feel more secure even when I am imperfect. The first truth is that God is closer than you think. Psalm 34:18, it says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." So even when you might not feel joy, you're feeling a little numbed out, maybe you're feeling so overwhelmed, you're dropping the ball, you don't see how anything going on in your life could be pleasing to God, I want to remind you that God specializes in broken. He specializes in broken. So when you are feeling at your lowest, He's near to you more than ever. The second truth, that your identity is in who God says you are, not how you feel. How many of you act based off of how you feel sometimes? Yeah, I would say most of us can do that. Galatians 3:26 says, "For you are all children of God through faith in Christ Jesus." So your worth as a mom, and this one is one I wish I had read sooner when I was a brand new mom. Your worth as a mom is not measured by how naturally motherhood comes to you. Even when you don't feel like you're enough, your identity is secure in Christ, and He is there. And truth number 3, God strengthens you in your weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9, some of us have definitely heard this one before, but it says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." God doesn't let you mother in your own strength. He wants you to invite Him in. His power is made perfect in your weakness. So when we see weaknesses as moms, whether we've lost our temper or whether we're overwhelmed or sometimes we wish that it was just our spouse and us again, that we can take that to Him. He's not surprised by it because we're human. But His power can be made perfect in those moments to show you that you are so incredibly loved and your worth is not measured by how you feel in the moment. Okay. There is purpose in pain. You know, like I've said here, if motherhood came easily to me, I might have relied less on God, right? I would have missed the chance to experience the loving kindness of those 3 women in particular over time that came alongside me in the midst of my struggles. And I also noticed, when we go through something, we would sometimes give anything for God to just take it off our plate, right? Just get rid of it, and then everything will be okay. But God didn't cause my issues as a mom. But He didn't fully take them away either. But He did do something, and I didn't see it, but He was working on it the whole time to allow me to have community in different forms throughout that difficult time. I look at the mom at the mall, the mom at the park, the doctor as all orchestrated things by God to help me know, Katie, you're not by yourself. It's okay. So if you are going through something, if you've been struggling in any way in your motherhood, I want you to know that there is a purpose in your pain. You might not know what that is now, but I promise you will. And I wouldn't take it back now. And you know why? Because for moments like this, for moms that I see in counseling sessions who are really overwhelmed, who are struggling with postpartum depression, and for all those moms that have been able to sign up for the Calm Mom course and feel like they can just emotionally exhale because they're not by themselves. Okay? Easy is great, but it fosters no dependence on God. So I wouldn't change it for anything. And I'm grateful for the lessons that he taught me, and he can do the same for you. Thank you. and for those of you, we're in a group right now full of moms, and this is amazing. But this is a once-a-month meetup, and it sounds like there's a lot of really great things that are planned for everybody, throughout the month too. But sometimes, I think if we're honest, we know that when we go back home, especially if we're staying at home with our kids, it can get a little lonely. And we might feel like we need more community, and we need to feel recharged and encouraged. So if you feel like that, I want to invite you to follow me on those accounts for Facebook and Instagram at SoundMindEDU. There I put up different encouraging posts for moms who are feeling overwhelmed. And if you are interested in receiving any counseling or parent coaching, I can be reached by email at katydefrankcounseling@gmail.com. But my hope is that you will feel like you are not alone and that we have community, and I want to be here to support you any way I can because I know the value of it for myself. So thank you very much.